The way I describe it a lot is it's like if someone took a sledgehammer to a stained glass window and then put all the pieces of glass back together in kind of a random order. It's the auditory equivalent of that. If you're listening to it and you don't really know what to listen for, there's so many just shards of shards of stuff going on. That's good. So this piece is Renoir Shards, and it's really interesting for a lot of reasons. It's a lot of really interesting challenges. Brian Ferneyhough is a composer based in California, and his music is kind of characterized by the intense specificity and detail with which each note is kind of placed, and with which like the gestures are created and the notes are all grouped together, which makes for something that kind of is designed to stretch the boundaries of what is actually playable by a human being and legible by a human being. Like what is it? Like what is the logical? How far can notation go before it kind of turns back on itself and starts to eat itself and be more of a hurdle to overcome than a accurate representation of what the sounds you actually hear are? And what are the actual limits of a human playing music? Like how specific can you be? How accurate and mechanical? Like to what degree can you control what you do? Are the questions that the music answers or asks, and it's our job to kind of answer those as we play it. And it's really fascinating for a lot of reasons because it's a challenge, and if you're learning something like this, you kind of learn, you find your boundaries, you find your limits, and if it's done well and it's done in like a really successful way, I think you can convey those boundaries to whoever's listening to it and whoever's watching it, and it's uncomfortable in a really exciting way to actually see Ferneyhough performed well because you're kind of watching these limits get stretched and tested, and you're seeing these musicians, performers communicate in a language that's kind of foreign to you.
I totally agree with Andy. It's like learning a new language, as he said. It's like learning British, where at first it sounds like a dude is, choking on cardboard talking at you. But over time you start to appreciate the subtlety of that language.
I know sort of a frequent knock on his music by some people is that it sounds as if it's random or sounds as if it's improvised, and if it's done well and if you're seeing it, it's very clearly not. It's like poetry in a language you don't speak, which is disquieting and kind of intense in a musical environment. There's so many fragments and like pieces of interesting musical material, and they're all kind of flying by so fast, and you're kind of swimming in them, and it's this tapestry of these fragments, and it's really, really interesting and kind of insane to try to put together as you listen to it. And when you're watching performers do it, they're clearly, like, if it's done well, it's teetering on the edge of what is possible.